Hi, I'm Ben Ahlvers. I'm the Exhibitions Director here at the Lawrence Art Center. We are in an exhibition that's on display currently at the Lawrence Art Center until June 19th. And the artist in residence actually, Dayon Royster, his show, Phaschunəble Nonsense Act 2, is up right now. And it's good to have you back around these parts, and it's good to see your face.
I know, yeah, with no mask on. Oh my goodness, yeah, glad to be back.
Well, yeah, tell us a little bit about what ideas were sort of floating around that informed the show that's up.
Yeah, so I guess really a plethora of ideas. Accessibility, bias, context, some truth and rules, and how humans interact with those things. I can give you a little bit of background on the work and where it came from. So we live in a digital age where everything's on a screen, and so we're constantly interacting with those. And because we're in the digital age, it seems like information is always coming at us like nonstop, and it's impossible, in my opinion, to process all of it. And so, trying to find ways that people can more or less slow down with the things that they're interacting with and engage with them in a more in-depth manner so that they don't make such quick snap judgments and sometimes end up hating someone that's not even worth hating.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about not just this body of work, but other things where you're always absorbing pop culture and things you see, whether you're out on the street or you're watching a program or listening to music. Talk about references or sources that end up in this work.
Yeah, so as you just said, like I could be riding my bike one day and I might see a piece of graffiti on an electrical box, and so I'll take a picture of that, and I might put a little caption underneath it in this language that I've come up with that I've titled as hyphenetics. And then some other times I may be watching a comedy special. I might be reading a book. I may be watching a movie. I may be having a conversation with someone, and something in any of those spaces might stick out to me. And what I end up doing is I have my phone on me. As I said earlier, everybody's living in a digital age, and I'll put those things in my notes section, just the little tidbits that stick out to me, and I'll revisit them at some other point, and I'll dig deeper into them, try to get a better understanding of them myself, and then I'll eventually, they may live on a wall somewhere in a piece.
So it's almost like a toolbox that you can sort of pull things out.
It is, yep. Yeah. And I get it from everywhere. So like I said, it could be from music. Some of them are from comedians, a bus ride. I remember there was a good period of time in grad school where I would always ride the bus, and I would hear some of the weirdest things like happening on the bus, like the conversations, and I'm just put them in the phone, because who knows, they can have a second life,
So that's a lesson if you're around Dayon. Watch what you say.
No,
you might end up on a wall somewhere.
Your name won't be attached to it, so you'll be safe.
Yeah, I like with that. What's the name of the language?
Hyphenetics.
Hyphenetics. So the way that you use that sort of takes it out of its original context and recontextualizes it, because you're not only playing with the words themselves and but also combining them with new things to make something that's not existed before. I think that's what's really intriguing about your work, the work that I've seen of yours. I think another thing you talked about, the digital world and how we've got it. It's readily available and it's faster all the time, and people are consuming it at such a rate. I like the idea of asking people to slow down, or presenting it in a way that sort of forces that. They may have to work a little bit for it, or as you say, slow down. And I think what's cool about this process that we'll talk a little bit more about, this printing process, is that you are literally making them move. In order to get the full experience, you physically have to move your body to see everything. Do you see, thinking about some of the prior work, there was a little bit of that. This is sort of, I think what this does is it nods at the digital world, because it's sometimes when I'm looking at these pieces, it seems like I'm looking at a digital screen, because things are moving as I'm moving, and it kind of messes with, it trips me up in some kind of way. What do you think? Do you think this is like a segue into working in the digital world for you, or is this
possibly? Yeah. I could see that happening, because I definitely work more traditionally in my older work, doing like screen prints, and so I'm the one that's physically pulling the print myself. This I've outsourced it to someone else. I provided the content, but they provided the technology that I don't have. And so, yeah, I mean, like many other artists before me, you got Jenny Holzer. You know, she's got like those, I don't know what you call them, like caravans of, people driving, down New York, in New York City with these billboards, more or less flashing on these trucks, saying whatever they're going to be saying. So I can see myself possibly going in that direction if I ever get the funding to do so. I think, that's the kicker there, money.
Well, I think it's a really intriguing process, and it's something that's been around with baseball cards and other types of form or formats. Let's maybe go take a look at a couple of pieces specifically, and we can talk a little bit more about this type of print, and then maybe you can even read some of the text for us. So let's take a look. So Dayon, talk about the process and technique. You referred a second ago about sourcing it. What is this process called?
So this process is called lenticular printing. I'll give you a little background on how I even came, reintroduced to it. So when I was a kid, I would have baseball cards that would have the same effect to it, where you see like King Griffey Jr. doing like a full swing from one shot to the next. And during my residency here, Steve Richardson in-house came down to the basement with a print that had some koi fish on it that were doing this weird depth perception. Like, it was just messing with my visuals a little bit. And I was like, whoa, like that's really cool. And he had mentioned that, like, hey, I feel like your work, like it reminds me of your work a little bit. And so I was like, oh, that would be cool if I could use that at some point. So anyways, to explain the way lenticular printing works, what happens here is there is a print on a piece of paper that is consisting of two files that were sent through a computer program, and that computer program spliced those two files to create a pattern image it's a linear pattern. So those two images are on there, and what happens next is there's a lens, a lenticular lens, that is placed over that print. And if you run your finger across this, you can feel what they call lenticles. And those are actually the lenses themselves. And light, what they do is they alter the direction of which light hits certain parts of that pattern, so that wherever you're standing, your vantage point, you are or are not able to see certain parts of that print.
Got it. Yeah. So, but basically, you created two different files that had different texts on them, and then they kind of spliced those together and through a program, and then this lens layer that's beveled like a sawtooth kind of.
It's a convex.
Kind of feels like. Got it. So then that creates that sort of hologram-ish quality. So talk about. So when you're in the gallery and you move around, you see different. You can only see certain things from certain places. And this may be difficult through a camera, but maybe talk about the two different messages or text lines that are in this particular piece.
Okay. So depending on where you're standing, you will be able to read. This is the question. When does excessive, unexamined compassion go too far? And then from the other angle, depending on where you are, it says, does the root of exclusion begin with basic categorization? And so with this piece, these are just questions that I ask myself. And in a way, I guess when I put them in a show, I'm posing them to the audience or the viewer. who's looking at it, and to hopefully have them question some of the things that they're doing, some of the things that they see other people doing. I think with this one, when is excessive and example compassion go too far? Yeah, when does it go too far? You know, like, can it go too far?
Sure.
I mean, we've seen, you know, throughout history, countless times where these, you know, certain, I don't know, political figures may, you know, start off from like a grassroots level and, you know, with the message of like delivering, you know, a helpful hand to, you know, a marginalized group of people. And at first it turns out it's like, it's really good, it's really helpful, oh my God, we're so happy that you came along. But then power starts to seep in and it consumes them, and their whole beginning gets sullied in a way, to where they're no longer lending a helping hand, they're robbing from you. And it's kind of crappy. So yeah, so that's one of the things where I was like, when does unexamined compassion go too far? Do we have the ability to check that? And then on the other side of that, does the root of exclusion begin with basic categorization? Again, does it? Does it start with basic categorization? If I'm separating things, you know, one by one, but I'm also supposed to be, you know, saying that, well, let's be inclusive, maybe not separate them into different categories. But I don't know. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not a sociologist. You know, I'm none of that stuff. I'm just a lowly artist, you know, trying to make prints and make people question things. That's all.
But I think that's the power that artists have, probably, is that we're not providing answers, we're presenting questions. Mm-hmm. And we're presenting a situation. I think with this show especially, because of the nature of being aware of your physical self as you have to move around, mm-hmm. and then your language that you have to then kind of decipher and interpret, the literal language. The asking of questions, I think, it all adds up to a totally unique experience, and I think, you know, not every piece, you know, is weighted.
Yeah,
like
there's some really lighthearted ones, yeah.
Right, and I like that as well. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
certainly reflects your personality, I think,
Yeah.
and I really like that. But I think that's the power that these things have, is they're asking questions, and it's up to them, to the viewer, to answer them for themselves.
Yeah, to go down a rabbit hole if that's where it sends you. Rabbit holes they're some of my favorite things to explore topic-wise. Just like, wow, how far can this go?
Yeah. Well, cool. I think you know, this process, I think, is really exciting, and it's sort of new for you, right?
Yeah, very new. Yeah. Yeah, to be using it in my work for sure. Like I was a kid and I was messing with, you know, the baseball cards, but now to have it in my work is it's really exciting, actually. It's really exciting, and I think moving on from here, whereas now it just has text in it, I would like to bring in imagery, and just to see how that works with this type of with the themes and things that I've been working with. If it's useful, if it's not useful, yeah, just to explore more with it.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of possibility in knowing the work you've made up to this point. With, you know, it's always a bit of a game with, you know, what's hidden and what's there, with what you make, and this process really lends itself to that in a big way. I like that, and I also like the sort of teasing of, you know, you're sourcing through digital platforms, especially social media. It's kind of quick and short. You know, this sort of nods at that. If people looking at this can sort of almost lose them. I have myself, like, it feels like a TV screen almost sometimes, because of the way that these letters are kind of moving in and out. Like, it doesn't seem like an analog situation, but it totally is. I like that extra layer of keeping people on their toes a little bit.
Yeah. One thing I don't and with this body of work, I don't want people to get too comfortable. And I guess in more than one way, now that you mention it, you know, like I don't want you to get too comfortable from one perspective, physically, but also don't get too comfortable in one perspective, you know, mentally either. Yeah, that's cool that you brought that up. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, and I like what you just said about, you know, literal
Mm-hmm.
and you know what you think you know.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of everything in this show. So, cool. Well, we're gonna miss you around here.
I'll miss you guys
It's been
too.
a couple of years. You got the extra stay.
I did.
Thanks,
I got
COVID.
Yeah, thank you, COVID. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know that's taboo to say, but no, COVID was a godsend in multiple ways, as well as the Old Testament. Whatever. So, anyways, yeah, no, it's been a good 2 years, and I'm very thankful to have had this experience. Yep, it's bittersweet.
Well, you always got a place in Lawrence.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, that's it.